Welcome back to One Comic Book a Day, where we're covering the final story in Superboy issue 15. Superboy's class reunion, which is kind of reminiscent of an earlier Superman story that was a Superboy story. It was a Superman or an Action Comics issue that revolved around a Superboy story, and it might have been actually the first Superboy story. I'm pretty sure it predated More Fun Comics. I think it's actually the first Superboy story, unless there had been some, scene of a young Clark Kent or Superman fighting crime before then, which is entirely possible. I am fallible. I barely remember the titles of these comics most of the time after I've just looked at them. This is a story I actually really like until it has to deal with the main part of the story. And unfortunately, that ends up being the least likable of the stories. It's kind of amazing. Once again, the story that kind of falls apart at the climax, a classic way for a Superboy or Superman story to disappoint me. But first off, the title page is almost exactly similar to that previous Superboy story, or Superman story, I should say, with him looking over some old photos in a photo book. I think he's actually sitting the exact same way. I really wish I could remember what story this was, because it might be the same artwork. They may have just reused his reaction shot of looking over the photos, because it is almost identical. So Clark Kent is brought onto a televised class reunion, oddly enough. So this is sort of a Superman story in the fact that we do get the older Clark Kent, and he bookends the story. So everybody at this reunion has written a letter when they were kids about what they wanted to do, and they're going to read them and then reveal what they're currently doing. Each one, about 3 of them, have done something that is within the range of what they wanted to do, but the story involving them being younger is going to involve Superboy saving them in some way. It actually involves some sort of disaster, and all these stories actually have a really amazing action set piece. I know I complain about Superman or Superboy using his powers really quickly. There's not a lot real focus on it. He just kind of shows up, deals with it. It's less than 3 or 4 pages. It's not particularly all that interesting to look at. Similar, but it's actually interesting to look at. Several of these pieces are some of the best action set pieces these comics had done, including one kid stupidly climbing on some dynamite and then accidentally toppling over a cliff and nearly lands and kills somebody. And how does Superboy deal with that? Well, he destroys the cliff. Usually Superboy would probably just push that guy out of the way or something. It's barely even all that involved. But no, he is destroying things, including stopping a runaway railway and using his breath to stop it. And I'm actually digging all these kids' stories. I do feel kind of upset. The comic at this time doesn't have any sort of critique to bring up Irma, who's running the whole class reunion story, as she wanted to be a train conductor, but unfortunately, due to her sex, the best she could ever do was be a dispatcher. She seems happy with it, but it's such a consolation prize. It's not like a really happy story about a woman becoming a conductor, because they still won't let her be one. And hell, that would have been a much more interesting story to fill. But unfortunately, most of the story ends up being about Al. Al is acting flighty. He doesn't want to read what was in there. The flashbacks to him involve him seemingly like a criminal. You kind of see where it's going to go. He's carrying a gun, as Clark immediately realizes, using his X-ray vision, that he's undercover. And in fact, when he does go deal with these criminals, he just shows up and takes care of them. Superman doesn't even have to do anything. And once again, if your climax for your Superboy or Superman story doesn't involve Superman being in any way useful to that story, you are not telling a Superman story. There's some exceptions I can accept, especially if like Lois or Jimmy sort of save the day when he's in trouble. But him not really even being all that involved in the story, more like an audience member not able to participate, I think you've kind of failed at why we're telling this story, which is sad. We had done so many short versions of why that was necessary and actually interesting stories to just flounder at the end. It's kind of amazing how badly they wrap up Superman stories. It's shocking how they constantly fumble the ball. Okay, that is it from Superboy issue 15. Superboy's class reunion, or was it Superman's class reunion? See, I've already forgotten the title. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications when a new video goes up. I do this Monday through Friday, but Friday is Bat Friday, where I cover a Batman story on the Detective Comics or Batman. And until next time, let's ponder the question: whatever did happen to the boy of tomorrow? And seriously, Clark, all you ever wanted to be was a reporter. I don't even know if that story that set that up even matters in the continuity anymore. Okay, have a great day.